Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Drivin with Mr. Met. Today is Friday, January the 17th, and it's been a week since I recorded anything, and a lot of stuff has happened in the last week, culminating yesterday with the, quote, mutual departure of Carlos Beltran as Mets manager. I want to talk about what's going on with that, my opinion on that, and I also want to touch on excuse me, not one but two different third basemen who were on the Mets radar last year won't be this year. And I'm going to do that while coughing on today's show. I've been fighting a cold the last couple of days, and it's getting worse of late, but I needed to record something today. I was out of town earlier this week as well, and I wanted to record on Monday or Tuesday, especially after the news about Josh Donaldson broke. So let's start there. Let's start with the two third basemen that I mentioned, who were on the Mets radar last year. So first, Josh Donaldson. On last week's show, I talked about the fact that Donaldson's decision as to where to sign for 2020 was going to have a huge impact on the National League East in 2020, and I believe that. I believed it when I said it, and I most certainly believe it now. And Donaldson, as we now know, made a decision to sign a 4-year contract with the Minnesota Twins, taking him not only out of the NL East but out of the National League altogether. And what that does for the division is it effectively knocks the Braves down a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And the Nationals knocked down quite a bit, in my opinion. I don't know who's going to play third for the Nats. They might still make a trade or sign someone. But right now, it's like Asdrubal Cabrera and Howie Kendrick, and I don't know. It's just an odd fit, and none of those guys are going to do what Anthony Rendon has done and can do. Donaldson could have come awfully close to replacing Rendon. Not as good a player, of course, but still a very good player when you look at the year he had last year and you look at some of the seasons he put together in Toronto. So the National League East playing field is now a little bit more level. I think it's a little bit more open for the Mets to be big players in the division. And I now think the Mets, Nats, and Braves are really neck and neck for the top of the NL East, and the Phillies are just like a smidge behind them. So thank you, Josh Donaldson. I hate you. I didn't realize how much I hated you till I had to see you last year as often as I did, but I appreciate you leaving the division. The other third baseman is Todd Frazier. Todd Frazier, of course, was the Mets' third baseman last year. His 2-year contract expired, and he was a free agent up until last Friday, I think, or Saturday, when he signed with the Texas Rangers. So Todd Frazier will be playing in Texas for 2020, and wish him the best while he's there. He will not be back in orange and blue. I don't think anyone thought he would. Frazier's one of those guys where when you look at it on the surface, he's a 230 hitter, not an everyday. That's not wrong choice of word. He's a 230 hitter, right? He's not like a sexy third baseman, but when you step back and look at his numbers, he put up 4 wins across the 2 seasons he was with the Mets, and he had a real nice season last year. I mean, there's no getting around that. You can't dismiss it. Had a couple of huge hits, none bigger, of course, than the home run off Sean Doolittle in August. But Frazier's gone. Thanks for coming. A lot of Mets fans aren't going to miss you. I'm indifferent. He never blocked me on Twitter, so I'm one of the lucky ones, I guess. So that's that. Now on to the meat and potatoes of what happened yesterday with the Mets and Beltran stepping in separate directions. This is a really, really, really shitty situation, and we don't know all of the details yet. And I think for me, that's part of the problem. It's part of why. I'll be honest, I recorded a video yesterday. I flew home overnight Wednesday. I took a red-eye home from LA, and I flew home to I flew home yesterday morning, and when I heard the news break, I was I was really pissed. So I got in my car and started driving around and recorded a video. And I'm talking within 20 minutes of the announcement being made, after I was texting with my friends Mike and Steve and Jeff about what was going on and the situation with Beltran and his departure. And I was so pissed. I felt like I needed to get something off my chest, and I did, but it wasn't appropriate. I didn't curse or anything. The news was so fresh, and there's still a lot of detail that we don't know yet. So I think at this point, the decision to part ways was, on paper, it was mutual. It was reported as mutual, but the reality is as more news continues to trickle out, Beltran did not want to leave his post. He wanted to stay as the manager of the Mets. It was the Mets really who sort of pushed him out. Not that you can blame them, honestly, because this would kind of be a black cloud hanging over the team. And other rumor and other news that broke yesterday, that surfaced yesterday about Beltran and Cora perhaps being the masterminds behind this whole scheme that was set up in Houston. If that ends up being true, that's really terrible, and Beltran should be disciplined for that. My anger and my ire is less about the Beltran's done, as a manager. It's more about the way that Rob Manfred handled this situation. And Rob Manfred's an attorney, so don't get me started on the fact that this scumbag, and he scumbagged his way through this. So here's what I understand the whole scenario with Beltran being the only player named in the 9-page report. Here's where I'm so pissed, right? So Beltran agrees to cooperate with MLB. He sits down with the investigators, explains everything that went down, and as in exchange for that, he was granted immunity by Major League Baseball so that he would not be suspended by the league. And apparently that held up. Right, so he was the snitch, fine, or he was a snitch, fine. He got his deal, made his arrangement, whatever. Manfred names him, and only him. And my question on that is, okay, so Rob Manfred's a lawyer. If he gives his word to a potential witness, yeah, tell us everything that you can. We'll protect you. And then he does shit like that. Behind the scenes, he releases a report and names that cooperating witness. Why would anyone cooperate with him again? Honestly, why would anyone cooperate? At this point now, I think every player, everyone involved needs to say, fuck you, Manfred. Excuse my French. I'm not cooperating with you because you threw Beltran under the bus. And he did. And whether it was right or wrong what Beltran did, that doesn't excuse Manfred's behavior. The mob mentality behavior that this guy put forth with this. Fine, I gave you immunity. I'm not going to punish you, but I'll get you. And that's what he did. And the other chicken shit part about it, honestly, is that Beltran's no longer protected by the MLBPA. The union does not protect him. He's retired. He's no longer an active player. So it's just interesting that Beltran's the only name that comes out, that he's the only player who was involved in this. And again, at this point, we don't know if there's any truth to the rumor that he masterminded this with Cora, whatever. But he's the only player to be punished. And the ironic part is now we're learning news about there were buzzer devices that maybe Altuve and Bregman, among others, may have worn during the 2017 season. There's a video floating around, everyone's probably seen it, with Altuve rounding the bases after hitting a home run, pleading with his teammates, don't rip my shirt off, and it looks like he's mouthing, I've got a buzzer on, or a device or whatever. He's pointing at it almost. Ken Rosenthal asks him after the game, and he sort of chuckles it off and says, I'm shy, and my wife yelled at me last time this happened. But it's just awfully coincidental that he wouldn't have his jersey ripped off. Hey, we know the Mets aren't cheating because they rip their jerseys off all the time, and there aren't any buzzers on anybody there. So at least there's that. So I'm smiling about this, I'm laughing about this now, but the sad reality is the Astros have a World Series championship, and the fans got to enjoy that run. The Red Sox have a World Series championship. The fans got to enjoy that run. The Mets get lumped in with these two teams, both of whom have won World Series in the last 3 years, and they don't have shit. Now what they have is a team without a manager yesterday with 27 days left to go before pitchers and catchers report. So what do the Mets do now to address this vacancy? It's got to be a decision they make very fast, and I think it has to be someone from within the organization who's brought in. And I think Luis Rojas is a very likely candidate. If not Rojas, Terry Collins, someone that can slip right into this role and not have a huge learning curve, because there's just not a lot of time. And, they're not going to replace the coaching staff. So this is a blow to this team heading into the season. But on the one hand, Beltran did not really establish full relationships with any of the guys. They didn't get comfortable with each other yet. So it's not that huge of a deal. It just sucks. It really does suck. It sucks for Beltran. It sucks for the Mets. It sucks for us as fans. It sucks that the Mets once again become a laughing stock, an LOL Mets moment for us to all have to endure. But we will endure, because that's what we do. We're Mets fans. We have thick skin because we're Mets fans. Being a Mets fan teaches you about losing, brushing yourself off, getting back up, and going back out and doing it again. So we may as well be Charlie Brown trying to kick Lucy's football, but we're going to have fun every time we do it. So I'll be back on Monday, hopefully on a regular schedule, and hopefully we'll have some news to report on who the new manager is going to be by Monday or Tuesday at the latest of next week. So I'll come back next week, and we'll talk then. So until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets, and fuck you, Manfred.